everyone, it's Nikki again, and I'm an intern with Northampton Community College and the Leadership Society. And today I'm here to talk to you all a little bit about safe spaces versus brave spaces. And what does that mean to a leader, and what does that mean to a community? So we're going to talk a little bit about our community guidelines before we jump into our topic today. So today's going to be a challenge by choice. So what that means is we want you to engage with this topic, with this idea, but we also want you to understand that, sometimes these conversations can be tough. So we understand that sometimes people need to take a step back, take a quick breather. At any point, feel free to pause the video, take a walk, get a drink, and then come back when you feel ready and are ready to grow and move forward. We also want you to try on a new idea before you come to a conclusion or make a judgment. Safe spaces are something that's talked a lot about in our society, in our current political climate. So before you make a conclusion, we really ask that you just think about this in a new way and keep an open mind. And finally, we also want you to know that it's totally okay if you don't agree with us on this point or any topic in the Leadership Society. A great part about this community is that we can all have different ideas. And when you're talking about an idea, that you just talk about how you might not agree with the idea, how you might not agree with the values behind the idea, but we're not out to personally attack other people or make assumptions about others' characters or their experiences. So those are our community guidelines for today, and they are a great template for any community guidelines whenever you might step into this role as a leader, as a facilitator, and as a presenter. So we have this idea, what is a safe space? So this term originated within the LGBTQIA+ community, and it happened when, homosexuality, same-sex relationships were not legal in the United States, where people were being persecuted, where violence was happening. Safe spaces were originally places where people part of that community could really authentically be themselves and still be safe from legal harm or physical harm. And now when we talk about it, it's really expanded to describe any physical or even an emotional space. So it might not be a physical room, but it might just be a place where people feel welcome, or a community, or a group of people that are willing to help other people out. And it's often specifically for people who might have minoritized identities, so people of color, people of different sexual orientations, people of different religions, can come together and talk about their experiences, some of their experiences with oppression or bias, and just their life in general. And it's a place where they can be comfortable and open about who they really are. So we have some pros and cons to safe spaces, like we have pros and cons to everything. So some of the pros are, it really allows people to freely express themselves and be who they authentically are. And it's a great way to allow people to connect to other individuals who have similar experiences. There's a lot of value and benefits from being able to connect with people on that level, to get a validation on how you're feeling, to know that other people are having the same experiences that you are. And it also creates a place where people can take a break from the mental strain of oppression, which is a fancy way of saying that, when you're experiencing racism or homophobia or prejudice because of any part of your identity, that can make you feel upset, it can make you feel angry, it makes you feel tired, and sometimes you just need a place to get away with a group of people who understand and to relax. But we also have some cons. So sometimes safe spaces can create a place where people don't have to engage with others who disagree with them. And that can sometimes stall progress or stall the opportunity for making all spaces within the community, more equitable. Sometimes people view them as a threat to freedom of speech. In our society, as an American, I know that I grew up with the value that we believe that people should say whatever they want because that's their right. And when we have a space where that might be curbed, people get upset about that. And then finally, some spaces can cause everyone to think the same, or that there has to be a right opinion. And if you hold a different opinion or you hold a different value, you might not be welcome in that space anymore. So lots of pros and cons. to both experiences. So then we also have a brave space, which is a term you might not be familiar with. So a brave space is a space for everyone, regardless of whatever identities that they hold, is able to equitably participate in reaching a goal or learning more about one another. And brave spaces are open and understanding to the fact that people, are going to disagree. We all have different thoughts and opinions, different experiences, and naturally, we just disagree with each other sometimes. And rather than seeing that as a negative, people in brave spaces want to see that as a positive. An opportunity for us to talk to one another and better understand where other people are coming from. And just like we have with safe spaces, we also have some pros and cons with brave spaces. So one of the greatest pros is that everybody is welcome into a brave space. As long as they're willing to participate, anyone can come and be part of this process, be part of this community. It's also a space where people who are marginalized, who have experiences with prejudice, can vocally express what they're going through in their experiences. And everyone can be there to listen and to better understand what people might be going through. And then finally, it's actively working towards a goal. So brave spaces are put together so we can make improvements to our community, improvements to our school, and just overall improve the communities that we share. Although there are some cons, sometimes if you're not ready to discuss certain topics or not ready to engage with issues that can be tough, that might not be a space where you want to be, or you might not feel welcome in a brave space. It also requires that everybody plays by the same set of rules. Brave spaces really only work when everyone is committed to respecting and understanding each other and being open and committed to the process. And it's also worth saying that sometimes having these conversations and hearing about other people's experiences, especially when their values and experiences are much different than your own, can make us feel really vulnerable or uncomfortable. So the big question you might have is, what do we need? A brave space or a safe space? And the answer is that we need to create spaces where we're able to have both within our communities. They're important so we're able to come to agreements, create solutions, to move our society forward while also allowing people to feel respected and feel like they're valued members of our community. So when talking about safe spaces, I have some great tips on how to create that within your organization, your team, your classroom, etc. So one of them is being welcoming and just genuinely interested in each member who comes into your space. Not only getting to know them on a surface level, but really getting to know who they are and what makes them, and what they can offer to the space. We also want to create spaces that are physically welcoming and accessible. So it's awesome to have a safe space, but if we have a safe space that's up 3 flights of stairs, then we're not being welcoming to people who might use mobility aids, like walkers or wheelchairs. So we want to make sure that we're able to let everybody into our space. We also need to let people, even in a safe space, express their experiences and opinions, even if our experiences and opinions are different, and we need to have respect for those differences. Safe spaces are also a place to have fun and relax, so whether that's having a TV, or sharing a coffee machine, or a microwave, or even just having a comfortable place to sit, we want to create spaces where people feel relaxed and are able to enjoy themselves. And safe spaces are great opportunities to have candid conversations about mental health. Part of being genuinely interested in each member is also making sure that you're genuinely interested in hearing how everybody is doing and supporting people when they might not be feeling well, whether that's physically, mentally, emotionally, being there as part of the community. And then here's how do we create a brave space. So the biggest thing in a brave space is showing respect for other individuals. We want people to know that they have dignity and respect as part of being human. And even if we don't agree with everything they say, or necessarily agree with their viewpoints, we still want to give them that respect. It's also important in a brave space that we create guidelines. It's important that everybody knows what behavior is acceptable, what behavior is not going to be tolerated, and the behavior that we need everyone to exhibit in order to move that discussion further along towards a shared common goal. It's important that when we're in a brave space, we need to use I statements versus saying, we always do this, or you never listen. We can only speak for ourselves in the way these experiences make us feel. And that's also a much more productive way to come to better understanding one another and getting our points across. It's also important that we own the intent and impact of our words. So sometimes we might say something that we intend to be harmless, or to be funny, or even to be kind. And sometimes it doesn't come across to the other person as that. They might be upset, or offended, or hurt. It's definitely important to share the intent of your words. It's also important to take ownership, even if you have hurt someone, to make amends, and to better understand how you can avoid hurting them or a member of their community in the future. And then finally, one of the best points of a brave space is understanding controversy with civility. So we can disagree with each other. Like I said earlier, it's natural and normal for people with different experiences and values and ways of seeing the world to disagree with one another from time to time. But it's important that we don't attack other people or disrespect one another. We want to create a community where everyone's dignity is upheld. And we simply can't do that if we're being unkind to one another or making personal attacks. So I hope you guys have taken away some valuable tips about the differences between a brave space, a safe space, some pros and cons to both, and how you can start creating these spaces in your own life, and in your team, and in your community. It takes a lot of practice, but there's definitely tons of benefits from creating these spaces that I think you guys will find really valuable, and I'm excited to hear how it goes. Thank you so much for listening today, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.